All right. I do have the same jurors writing wanting to know about asking questions. I know y'all want to see the note. It's here. And I'm just going to re-express what I've already told them. Write it down, and at the end of the trial, if you have questions, you can ask them. Brian, this can be another court exhibit. All right. I think we can resume. Let's bring the jury in.
Thank you. Hold a note first.
You're wanting an update on how close the hurricane is to Brunswick. PE 16, I guess they're wanting to know about getting the Highway 16. Has it changed, and can we have an update?
Just from what I heard, we can Google it, I guess.
Can somebody do that, and when we take a break, we can tell them?
I can get Mark to Google it real fast.
Okay.
You want me to just
You
verbally tell them, or just how you want me to relay it to them?
Josh speak to him. Josh have it on an email because he's getting updates.
Oh, okay. Well, it wouldn't take long to do Google it.
Okay, just bring them on in, and we'll just wait till Josh gets here and
Okay.
give us an update. How
All
about
right.
that? I think the hurricane is still down in Cuba.
Yeah, it's still got it.
It's in Cuba, isn't it? I'll look it up.
The honorable sheriff said he's on his way and be here in about 30 minutes. For the update.
Okay,
Let's all rise for the jury, please.
I'll tell them that.
Yeah, for the sheriff.
I'll tell them that. No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed your lunch, and it's good to see you again. Some housekeeping. As we've already discussed, because of the weather, there are problems transporting witnesses. So we are going to conclude at the end of today. We're going to work, we've got enough in the way of witnesses to keep us busy till sometime between 5 and 6. And then I'll be excusing you all on Monday. I have a question about the status of the hurricane, and Sheriff Jump is going to be here in about half an hour, so I don't think we can get any better information than that. I know that there's one other issue, and that's about questions. And if you'll remember, I told you all that I gave you notepads to make notes of regarding things that you wanted to make notes of during the trial. I also told you that if you had questions in the progress of the trial, to make a note of that. And when the case is over and you all have arrived at a verdict, that's the time that we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, let's proceed with our examination.
Thank you. Afternoon. Mr. Shumpert, pleasure speaking with you this morning. Yes, sir. As I say, we'll attack gloves and continue if we could, please. Just a couple more questions. The scene at Acres Mill. When you were working with Investigator Jackson around Cooper's body, you were taking these photographs, and it looks like you were just really, really close to the body to get those photographs. Is that accurate?
Using the zooming in from the
Yes.
camera,
Uh-huh.
zoom in as close as possible.
Okay.
I'm within knee bent range from
Okay.
the decedent.
So you may not be within inches yourself, but you're at least standing right over in that area. So
Right.
you can-
He's on the ground on his knees working with the decedent,
I got you.
and I'm kind of trying to stay out of his way, but kind of also hovering around as he needs me to maneuver.
And is he kind of directing you as that, hey, take a picture of this shows something, this shows something?
He does.
Okay, very good. And was there any other detectives there assisting with that, or is it just you and Mr. Jackson?
It was just he and I. They were mostly standing kind of around the perimeter of that tent that we erected.
I got you. Very good. Just kind of letting y'all do your job, what you needed to do.
Right.
And after you got through doing the photographs, is that when the investigator bagged the Cooper's body? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did I understand, you didn't actually touch the body anyway? You didn't assist in doing that? You were just there when it happened?
No, he did it all himself. He touched jurisdiction over the body,
Okay.
and he took it up and took it away.
And you certainly, you wouldn't have a need to take photographs of that or anything, correct?
We haven't taken the body away.
Right.
It's not a common practice that's ever been done.
Okay, very good. And so as he's dealing with the body and you see that happen, are you already getting a call to go do something else? Or is that when you kind of step back and someone says, hey, we need you to go to the house? Or do you recall how that happened?
I was commanded to go to the Home Depot treehouse office
Okay.
to go photograph the other vehicle from the commanding lieutenant on the scene.
Very good. And so that's, you went, and it was still daylight because we got those pictures that show when you went there.
That's correct.
All right. Did you actually go to the residence that night?
Yes, after I made the trip to Home Depot treehouse to document that vehicle. I went immediately to Winds Ridge to wait for the search warrant.
Okay, very good. And the search warrant got there before you went in, obviously, correct?
Right. The detectives who were waiting for me there, Detective Racy and Adam Check, were there to execute the search warrant.
All right. And were you aware that the purpose of the search warrant was to go in and look to see if there was any evidence of child neglect or child abuse in the photographed residence?
No, I didn't go into detail what the search warrant entailed.
Okay.
Just when we were inside, it was the common go in, video, photograph, take overalls, and as the detectives moved about and found the items that reflected the search warrant's parameters, they were told to be seized.
Okay. So were they pointing out things for you to take photographs of, or were you just kind of walking through the house trying to document everything?
Well, overalls initially were my own accord, but then if there's any other items that they specifically pointed out photographed, they would say photographed.
Okay. Do you remember them pointing out anything specifically for you to photograph at the house?
Just items that we seized, and maybe some other electronic items inside the house.
Okay. And you said, did y'all seize, what did you seize when you went in the house?
We seized a MacBook Pro, I believe,
Right.
a Dell computer tower, and a Google Chromecast.
Okay. Is it possible that you went in that house more than once within those first few days of Cooper's death?
Just one time.
Just one time.
For the search warrant.
Okay. All right. And it's your recollection is when y'all left that house from that search warrant, you took the MacBook and the computer that you talked about already?
Right, there's 3 items.
Okay.
Another search warrant was executed on the 30th, but that was separate from this date.
Very good, very good. And when you were looking around the house, you talked about, you showed us photographs of kid items all over the place,
Right.
correct? And it's fair to say that you didn't see any evidence of this child being neglected, certainly not missing out on any food or toys or clothing, anything of that nature.
Nothing looked out of place other than my parents having a child.
Very good. Do you have any children yet?
I have 2.
Okay. And as you know, how it can get messy and stuff all over the place from time to time.
That's correct.
All right. And in the pictures you've shown us, that's how the house appeared when you saw it on June 18th, 2014.
That's
right?
correct.
And so you wouldn't be able to speak to whether any of those items are out or where they would have been if Ross had some woman over to the house some year before.
That would be outside of my parameter.
Very And if you had seen any actual indications of some neglect or abuse, would that be something you would have photographed yourself if you found it on your own?
It would be. It was somebody I would bring attention to the detectives that were with me.
Okay. And if the detective saw something they felt like was something like that, they could certainly tell you and say, hey, here's what we're looking for, or this might be important.
I would have faith they would.
Very good. And you just don't recall that occurred in this occasion?
The occurrence that I saw.
Of a detective saying, hey, yeah, take a picture, this is some item of evidence of abuse or neglect.
For abuse or neglect?
Right.
No.
But apparently the computers were of interest to you, or to them, I should say.
Per the search warrant, yes.
Okay, very good. Now, you went to the house, the other time you went was some months later, is that right?
And that was the same month.
It was in June, okay.
It'll be a couple weeks later on the 30th.
Very good, right at the end of the month, end of June. And did you understand the purpose of going at that point in time was to look specifically at the light bulbs?
That was one of the reasons of being there, was to find out if the light bulbs are out.
Also looking for some banking information, financial information?
That was correct.
That's correct. And were you told before you went there, hey, we want to go look for some light bulbs? Did you have any idea why you were going, or did they just say, hey, come with us, we need to take some pictures?
I had, briefly they said, we're going to do a search warrant at the residence again. We need to go look for a couple things. We need to look for whatever the scope of the search warrant.
Right.
I have the search warrant when it's done to put whatever we took on the back of there and photograph it and leave with the homeowner.
Very good.
And most of the time, other than if I specifically read it on my own accord, I have full faith that the detective executing the search warrant knows what they're looking for and will do it within the parameters of the search warrant.
And if they do or not, that's really up to them. Your job is just kind of take pictures.
Right, to document the search warrant.
Very good. And because you had photographed the car on June 18th and had seen that bag in the car, did you put the connection of there about them trying to see if there really was a need for light bulbs in the house or not?
Later on, I would find out that information.
I got you. In fact, when you photographed the car, were you able to tell what was actually in the Home Depot bag?
No, I didn't make entry into the car. It's just I
Okay.
saw a bag, commonly looking like a Home Depot bag with a brand outside, clearly on the outside. So
Okay. So you didn't know what was in the bag in the car on June 18th?
no, sir.
Okay, fair enough. And, but when y'all went to the house, you looked and actually found the need for those light bulbs in the house, correct?
In the bathroom, there were approximately 3 light bulbs that were out.
Okay. And I wanted to see if I can get that picture. I'm sure I won't get it here. Hold on. Brian, can I see that stack real quick? I apologize for not having pulled it out. I think it was near the end. If my mistake's 236. I'm going to show you 235 and 236. And because of the lighting, and you're probably the best lighting expert we have with us today at least, does one of those photographs show us more clearly which of the light bulbs were actually out that day?
In my opinion, I can tell that 3 of them appear to be out in one and 3 appear to be out in the other.
Very good. You can tell it in both of them.
Right.
Correct.
3 of them look to be darker than, there's a total of 6, and 3 of them look to be darker than.
Okay. And you might say, now, I'm sure the ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to point out specifically so it's clear, because it may be confusing with the lighting as to whether some are on or off. Let me take one from you. I'll put 235 down here. This is 236. If you can just kind of point to the ones that are maybe obvious, but I just want to make sure it's clear what you saw that day that was out.
That one?
You just kind of step down here and show these folks too, please.
That one? This one? That one?
All right, thank you. after taking the pictures of those light bulbs that were out, do you remember if you photographed anything else on that occasion?
Yeah, I believe we photographed some documents in the house.
Okay. Did you take, let me see if I may have the answer right in front of me. You took photos, doesn't look like y'all didn't actually take anything else, see anything from the house that day.
No others were taken.
Other than photographing Ms. Harris's vehicle at the tree house, did you take any other photographs there at the tree house that day?
No, sir.
Give me just 1 minute, please, sir. That's all I have now. Thank you so much.
Three quick areas of topics of redirect. You asked some questions about smell. There's a distinction between whether you typed something or whether you smelled something. Did you smell something?
I did.
Okay. Is it typical that during a death investigation you would document specifically whether you smelled something at a death scene?
It all depends, but not normally. I mean, we go into all kinds of death scenes where there be a decomposition and the person who just freshly died. Is this something that is not written in a report? Usually I don't, but it's just commonly associated. If you would go in, that's a sense that maybe not something that's ultimately something that I would write in a report.
You were asked a series of questions on cross-examination about the vantage point and things like that. It goes without saying when you take a photograph, that's a two-dimensional image that's captured, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Does the two-dimensional image necessarily account for your periphery?
It doesn't.
So I want to ask you then, understanding the distinction between a photograph versus what you can see, how tall are you?
Around 6 feet tall.
As a 6 foot tall man, when you were standing within the door frame of the vehicle, with your eyes, could you see that car seat?
I could.
The last topic that I need to cover with you is an aerial that I did not show the jury. We authenticated it, but didn't put it in. This is State's Exhibit 232. 232, now displayed for the jury. And if you will, step down just briefly for me. I should have shown this before we talked about the Winds Ridge location where the search warrant was executed. I want to ask you, does this accurately reflect where the Winds Ridge home or apartment was at the top?
Yes.
Okay. And then in relation to it, south of there, does it also accurately reflect the Home Depot treehouse location that you've given testimony about?
Yes, it does.
What about Little Apron Academy here on the left
Yes.
and the Chick-fil-A?
Yes, it does.
So all of those images, including our crime scene over here past the mall area, they're all captured in this final aerial exhibit that's now being displayed to the jury, correct?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 232.
Correct.
Turn this a little bit so the jurors over there can see it as well. Is this Winds Ridge?
Yes.
Is this the Home Depot treehouse?
Yes.
Is this the Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
Little Apron Academy marked here.
Yes.
Are all of these identified areas within Cobb County?
Yes, they are.
I believe that's all I have.
Just very brief, based on those questions. I have a little issue with the podium. It may be a little bit silly, but to the question about periphery, as you were standing here, identifying maps, even walking around here, identifying stuff, looking at pictures and whatnot, there are things in your periphery that you didn't see because you weren't looking for them, correct?
If I were looking for them, I would see them.
Right. If someone had told you to go look for it, then you would have been able to do that.
Right. Works both ways, though. Sure.
And as to the the smell of the urine and the diaper that you talked about that you smelled. Your description of it was unremarkable, correct?
To me, it was an unremarkable observation that I would put in a report, knowing the information I had at the time.
No one else made it remarkable to you as you were on the scene, correct?
I didn't talk about it. I was pretty much doing my job at the time and moved about going to the next location after that, but it wasn't discussed on the scene at all.
Great, thank you.
No.
You're free to go. Next witness. Sheriff Jump is here. Would you mind, Sheriff, the ladies and gentlemen of the jury were wanting an update, if you could, on the path of Matthew.
Sure. Judge, the hurricane itself hasn't taken that much of a change. It's still kind of out there undecided what it's going to do. What we're looking at for tomorrow that's really come to light is the northeastern or northwestern that's coming in, which is going to bring a lot of rain just from it, which is going to make the roads dirty and dangerous and wet to be on tomorrow. The schools have already been canceled for Thursday and Friday.
We've already decided we're not coming in the morning. I should have told you that.
Well, I got to go through all my spiel then.
Because these good ladies and gentlemen who are your constituents.
They my
wanna
voters,
say-
Judge.
Yeah, I know it. And they also want to say thank you for lunch. And they had asked specifically for some update. We're going to work till 5:30 or 6
Okay.
to wrap up our business, and then we're not coming back in the morning. And apparently, you're suggesting that that's the way to go.
Yes, ma'am. If you need dinner tonight, let us know. If not, bless y'all, go home and be safe. We're here if y'all need us and your staff, but y'all please be careful over the next few days.
And I think there will, so right now, you're saying that the tornado, you can tell where I'm
The
from.
hurricane.
The hurricane? Well, at home it's tornadoes, and they're different than hurricanes. Your hurricanes stop, tornadoes just bounce all around.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
So-
And that also brings that in down here on the after spin. So we have to look for that also.
You're gonna have your hands full. But right now, it's kind of stalled around, I think it's going to, the Bahamas.
It is. It is. I mean, it's still a good 24 hours off from us, so you don't have to worry about that. The hurricane itself, you're looking at Friday night and Saturday. The rain coming in from the north, you're looking at tomorrow, and it's going to be dirty on the roads tomorrow. But the hurricane itself, not until Friday.
I think that's very, very helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
And we appreciate all of your attention to our well-being.
Yes, ma'am. Got to watch out for my folks. Any other thing, Judge?
I don't think so. Thank you, Sheriff John.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're at least gonna make it till tomorrow. And then we'll have to see. I think those people down in Haiti have really done a hard time of it. Next witness.
State would call Artika Eastland. Okay. And ma'am, would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your name and then spelling it so the court reporter gets it right?
Okay, I'm Artika Eastland, and it's spelled ARTIYKAEASTLAND.
And Miss Eastland, generally, where do you live?
I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And are you in school? Do you work, or what do you do?
I work, and I'm going back to school.
Okay. And what are you going back to school for?
I'm actually not sure yet.
Okay. I'm going to turn your attention back to June 18th of 2014, kind of later that afternoon on that day. Do you remember being at a restaurant called Cinco's?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, is that in Cobb County?
Yes.
Okay. Who were you there with?
An associate of mine, friend.
Do you? It's been 2 years. Have you seen him since then?
I have not.
Okay. Do you remember his name?
I do not.
Okay. Now, was this a man, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. And was this a date, or just tell the jury what you were going to Cinco's for?
Just a casual hangout. It was a really hot, nice. It was a nice day to be on the patio.
Okay. Did you take it as a date?
Not at all. No.
Okay. Now, when you got to Cinco's, how long had you been there before you went back outside of your car?
Let's say 40 minutes. Not quite an hour, but
What did you go back out to your car to do?
my phone had died. I went to charge it.
And in charging it, did you sit in the car and leave the car, or did you stay with the phone in the car?
No, I stayed in the car.
At some point, while you were in the car charging your phone, was your attention directed up toward Acres Mill Road by Uncle Matteo's?
It was, yes.
Tell the jury what you heard and what you saw that drew your attention.
I was looking down on my phone, and then I heard burning rubber, or screech, and as a truck had made a left into the parking lot, when he turned in, he was facing me. So when I looked up, I saw him enter the parking lot and stopped abruptly, open the car door and get out, and he got the child out of the car.
Let me stop you there. When,
Okay,
when you got the
sorry.
child out of the car, was he saying anything, or did you hear him doing anything?
He was frantic, and he had yelled, "What have I done?"
And when you say frantic, is that just from what you were hearing from your car?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this area, you said Cinco's and Uncle Matteo's. Are there patios there at Cinco's and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there were people out on the patios that day?
Well, I know that people had definitely stood up, because where I was, you couldn't tell, but after that had happened, people had stood up, so you could see that there were people on the patio.
Okay. This area, is it a pretty crowded area? A lot of people over there, like Cinco's and things like that?
I would say fairly crowded, yes.
When you you saw this, him get out of the car, you said he got the child out. Was it from the front seat or the back seat?
It was the back seat.
When you saw this happen, what, if anything, did you do?
I did walk. I got out the car and I walked towards the area to see what was going on.
Where were you parked? The jury's already seen the map and the layout of Cinco's about
Okay.
12 times. So,
Okay.
just tell them a little bit about where your car was parked in regard to Cinco.
My park was parked directly in front of the front door entrance.
Okay, so you're actually looking toward Uncle Matteo's from the front of your car.
I can see it vividly to my left.
Okay.
Yes.
So, as you approach, what did you see? What, if anything, did you see?
I saw the child the baby on the ground where he had placed him. I saw another Spanish gentleman had ran up to kind of help. I believe he may have called 911. I saw the dad. I saw him kind of just put his hands on his hair and kind of kept saying, "What had he done?" And he kind of walked off, and that was it.
Okay. Now, did you ever see him actually performing CPR?
No.
Okay. Did you make an assumption that he had done that? Or do you remember if you'd ever said before that you thought he'd done CPR or something? I know it's been a couple of years, so do you remember specifically watching him actually do chest compressions or anything like
No.
that? Okay. If you've said previously that you saw him doing CPR, was that based on your assumption that he was down with the kid or something you actually saw?
I thought that he had went. I think that I took a good guess.
Okay. Now, were you running up to the scene, or were you walking, or?
No, I didn't run up. I did immediately get out the car because he had immediately screeched in and got out the car very quickly and took the baby out. So at that point, I kind of got out the car and walked towards his car, but not too close, obviously, but I got close enough.
About how far would you say you were from the car and the other people that were around him?
I would say maybe 15, 20 feet, not that far.
Okay. About the same distance as me to you, further or less?
I would say at one point I was a little even closer, but for the most part I would say about this far.
Okay. So as far as, you said he was on the ground with him, was it a long time or a short time before he got up and walked away?
Very short time.
When he got up and walked away, did he walk, well, I guess, where do you remember him walking as far as in regard to the car he'd driven?
He did walk on the other side of the car for a period of time, and then he kind of just walked off. From that point, I'm not sure. I want to say he walked towards the left.
Mm-hmm. Once he walked away, were you focused more on the child or what he was doing or saying or things like that?
Well, I couldn't help but to focus on him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me why.
Because he kept saying what had he done. He was just I don't know, nervous. He just seemed real nervous, and I mean, just the attention. He just was getting my attention by that, I guess.
And during this time, you said, was he yelling this? What have I done?
Yes, he was.
Were there other points when he was not yelling while he was on the other side?
Yes.
While the child was being attended to there, do you remember the police actually showing up?
Yes, I do.
Did you witness any of the interactions between law enforcement and the defendant as far as what happened there with them?
They did handcuff him and take him to the back of the police car.
Do you remember anything about their interactions, what they said to each other or what law enforcement said to him or anything they noticed about him? Okay. So I guess as far as their interactions in dealing with him and the people that were on the scene, I guess dealing with the child as well right beside the defendant, would their perspectives about the defendant been closer up and things like that and more, I guess, involved in yours?
The police or the...
Both the people who were down there on the ground with him initially and then the police when they were dealing with him?
Yes. Okay.
Now, during this time after the person had walked away, do you think you would recognize him if you saw him here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Okay. Could you look around the courtroom and if you see him, please identify him by what he's wearing and where he's sitting?
He has on a striped tie and white.
Okay. You're not asked the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant.
Yeah.
Did that defendant ever come back to his child and sit there with him or ask to see him or anything like that during the time you were there?
No.
As far as seeing the child, were you able to get close enough to see any details about the child or anything like that? Or tell the jury, how can you describe the child as far as what you could see from the distance you were at?
He was on the ground. He was grayish, bluish, and I remember I think he had on blue jean shorts.
And could you get close enough to tell anything else about him as far as whether he was wet or anything like that?
Oh, he was very sweaty.
Now, did you call 911 or did you hear other people calling 911 or tell us if you heard anyone call 911?
I believe an employee, I think it was from Mario's, who called 911.
Okay. And I know it's been 2 years, but do you remember anybody else calling 911, any other civilians or anything?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you ever see the defendant call 911 or anything like that?
No.
At some point, did the emergency medical personnel, like EMTs and things like that, arrive?
Mm-hmm.
And were you still there and close when that happened, or had you moved away as best you remember?
I think I was still close. I was speaking to the police officers.
after, I know you said that you knew at some point the police handcuffed him and they put him in a patrol car.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember seeing the defendant when he was in the back of that patrol car?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice anything out of the ordinary that struck you about his behavior in the back of the car?
That he kept turning around to, I guess, to see what was going on.
Mm-hmm. And at any point during these times he would turn around, were there moments when he would do something that struck you?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you tell us about that?
Well, for me, it was just the franticness, and then the being very calm, and then turning up like as if it was not made up, but as if it wasn't sincere.
And is this when he's in the back of the patrol car?
It was inside and both.
When you looked, did you see him as he was facing? Let me ask it this way: when you saw him in the patrol car, was it he was looking back at the people there in the scene and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, the person you were there with, this guy, did he come out there at the same time you were there, or did he come out a lot later?
Oh, a lot later.
Okay. How much had gone on as far as you remember before he even got out there?
Practically everything had. He was already in the cop car, I believe, when that gentleman came outside.
Okay. So you would have been on scene a lot longer and seen a lot more than he would have. Would that be correct?
Yes.
And actually, have you even talked to him since that day?
No.
And also, at some point, I think you said you'd noticed him at points over on the other side of the car. He would yell sometimes and things like that. Do you remember anything about him being on a phone or doing anything like that?
Yes, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what he did, but he was on the phone.
That's all I have. Thank you, Judge.
Good afternoon, Ms. Eastland. You doing okay?
Yes.
I still want to knock it. Scoot it back just a tad. Don't have to squint. Ms. Eastland, you talked to the police twice back in 2014. Remember, the first time was on the both times were on the phone, right?
No, one time it was definitely at the scene.
Okay.
Where, yes.
All right, and then the second time. All right, and then do you remember the second time you talked to a police officer was on July the 10th, 2014, on the telephone? You talked to Detective Murphy?
I didn't even remember that, but I kind of remember speaking to somebody on the phone, but I wouldn't have remembered that if you didn't say anything.
Okay.
I just remember the scene talking to them.
All right. And you remember that it was a Cobb County detective?
I would assume so, but I don't remember. But I thought it was police, but I don't remember speaking to anybody on the phone.
All right. Well, would it help you if we played the recording of your interview and your conversation with this detective so you could listen to it?
It may help me.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we go through some things that you talked about with the detective and you don't remember? We'll just play the interview for you and see if it would refresh your recollection.
Okay.
Would that be okay? Okay. All right. When you were speaking with Detective Murphy on the phone, do you remember telling him that you heard the sound of burning rubber, and that's what drew your attention?
Yes.
Okay. And then you you actually saw the car swerve into the parking lot.
Yes,
Is that fair to say?
yes.
All right. You told him that you heard screaming and someone in a panic.
I heard burning rubber, and that was what I heard.
Okay, so you don't recall using the word screaming or panic.
No, it was 2 years ago.
All right, we'll let you listen to the recording. All right, do you remember telling the detective that he put him on the ground and tried CPR?
No, I remember him. I mean, well, CPR. There's a CPR. If you put what he did was not CPR. If he did it or thought he did.
Okay. So you don't remember telling, on July the 9th, 2014, telling the detective that he put him on the ground and tried CPR? You don't remember that? All right. All right. Do you remember telling the detective that the man was yelling for someone to call for help?
No, I don't.
You're not saying you didn't say it, you just don't remember saying it?
I don't remember saying it.
Okay. Is it possible that's what you told the detective over 2 years ago?
Yes, it's possible.
I just want to back up one thing. The first time that you talked to a detective, you said was actually there on the scene.
The one that came when 911 was called.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember telling that officer that he was trying CPR? He began performing CPR.
I don't remember, but I don't remember.
Okay. You told the detective that the man was screaming. Remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember telling the detective that your observation was that it was setting in for him?
Setting in?
It was setting in for him. What had happened?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Is it possible that you told the detective that that's what you observed of the man? Is that he had this change because it was setting in for him? What had happened?
Well, what change?
Change in how he was acting?
No. I mean, but that's possible, but I don't think that's what it was.
Is it possible that's what you told the detective?
Yes.
Okay. You told the detective that he was yelling, "What happened? What have I done? What have I done? What have I done?"
Yes.
Right? You told the detective he was yelling, "I've killed my son. My son's gone."
Yes, I remember that.
Right? I believe you've indicated that you actually saw Ross take his son out of the car.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see if anybody was helping him?
Not at that moment, no one was helping him, but I believe someone came up after and tried to help him.
Okay. All right. So Ross got in the car and took the baby out by himself.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I think so.
And then put him on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you would have seen him try to do CPR.
Yeah.
And would it have been after that where he would have yelled for someone to call for help?
Yes, I think it was after.
Okay. And how quickly after Ross got him out by himself, put him on the ground and started doing CPR, how quickly was it when anybody else came up to try to help him?
It was fairly quickly, but I don't remember. But I want to say it was fairly quickly, maybe less than 5 minutes.
Okay. It all happened. This whole thing happened fast.
Yes, very fast.
So somebody came up and got down and tried to help doing CPR within about 5 minutes?
I mean, I would say that it didn't seem like much of a long time after he put him on the ground before someone else was over. Actually, it had. I'm sorry if I could go back.
It's okay.
I think it was maybe a good 5 minutes because I remember the baby being alone at one point. So
Okay.
that's why I say that.
You remember the baby being alone on the ground and nobody was attending to him at all? Nobody was trying to do CPR?
At one point, nobody
At
was
one
there.
point, nobody was there. Okay. Who was it that closed the door to the Ross's vehicle?
Oh, I don't know.
You didn't see that?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
All right. And I believe that you've indicated that you saw, at one point you said you saw Ross put his hands on his hair and walk off.
Yes.
So it's something like this. He had his hands up on his head and he walked away like this.
Well, more so looking up at the sky, but something similar to what you just did.
Like, oh God, what have I done? Like that?
Yes, that's exactly what he said as well.
Oh God, what have I done? Kind of like that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember that when you talked to Detective Murphy on July the 9th, 2014, he specifically asked you, did anything seem suspicious? And you said nothing seemed suspicious.
No, I don't remember that at all.
Well, it's been over 2 years. Is it possible that perhaps you said that and you've just forgotten that you said that?
That's possible, but I don't remember saying that at all.
It was possible that that's how you responded to Detective Murphy, was with the exact words, nothing seemed suspicious.
I don't think it's possible, but I don't think I said that.
Don't think you said it. Okay. And then today you've said, you said that he seemed nervous. Nervous.
Yeah, I would say nervous.
And was that part of it when he was walking around looking up? Oh God, what have I done? What have I done? Is that when he was looking nervous? Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah, I said when he was in the back of the police car as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so, how long was it? How long was it before the police got there? From the time that you saw him stop trying to give CPR and get up and walk away with his hands up like that?
Not very long. Maybe about 5 minutes. I'm honestly not sure with the timing.
All right. And I believe you testified that this all happened very quickly. It was very fast. And you said he never went back to the child.
No.
Right. Okay. In fact, he got arrested. As soon as the police got there, he got arrested within almost immediately, didn't he?
I'm not sure, but I think I want to say he was handcuffed shortly after. For sure.
All right, so he was handcuffed, and then they put him in a police car.
Yes.
All right. And so from that point, what you observed was that the police car drove off, and you saw him turning around, looking back out of the back window?
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to just seeing the back of his head where he was just sitting in the police car looking straight ahead?
Right. Correct.
You saw him turned around looking back toward the scene where his car was, and emergency people and police and all that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you just thought that was strange that he would be turning around in a police car to look at what was going on?
Well, I thought it was strange that the tears had suddenly stopped and were on and off. It wasn't that he was looking.
All right. So at what point did the tears stop?
I guess, I'm not sure. He was,
By the time he got arrested?
yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
All right. So you saw Ross get Cooper out of the car by himself, put him on the ground, try CPR, get up, walk away with his hands up. Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Police get there. They quickly arrest him. He stops crying at that point. He gets put in a police car, driven a few feet away, and then you see him turn around looking back.
Yeah, well, he wasn't crying until then. He wasn't crying before
Okay.
he got arrested.
All right. Well, then when did he cry?
He was, I don't know if he was sobbing of some sort when he actually got arrested and when he was in the cop car, on and off.
All right. So you saw him sobbing in the police car on and off.
Yes, on and off.
Okay. And could you hear him screaming out while he was in the police car? Could you hear him hollering and screaming out any?
No, I don't remember hearing him scream out anything.
You didn't hear that.
I don't remember him doing
All
that.
right. You could tell that he was crying or sobbing in the police car.
Well, he was vividly right in front of me, so I could see the motions of him crying, and then it suddenly just stopped.
Like the emotions like heaving.
Like crying,
Yeah.
your shoulders or whatever.
Do you remember that when you talked to Detective Murphy, you told him that your colleague that was with you, his name was Mr. Madden, right? Madden.
I'm not sure what his last name is.
Do you remember his first name?
His first name was Leonard. Leonard. It's still 2 years ago. That was our first time hanging out, so Leonard is his name though.
And y'all had been just hanging out at Cinco's?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is Leonard somebody that you had just met recently?
Yes.
Okay. Did somebody like fix y'all up or something?
No, we were hanging out at the pool, and it was very casual. We just all decided to go get drinks, and that was really it.
All right. At Cinco's?
Yes.
What do you remember what y'all had to drink at Cinco's that day?
Margaritas.
Margaritas. Okay. You don't remember how many you had or what he had, or?
I had one. I'm not sure how many he had.
Do you remember telling the Detective Murphy that actually Mr. Madden had approached the scene, but you stayed back closer to the restaurant?
No.
You don't remember telling him that?
No.
Is it possible that that's what you told him?
I don't know but I don't remember. That's not the case. That's not what happened. But
Okay.
I'm not sure.
All right. Well, let me just ask it really plainly. Do you think maybe your memory would have been better back in July of 2014, or it would be better now?
Both. I mean, it just depends on what you ask me. Some things I can explain to you vividly down to the color of his shirt that he was wearing.
Okay.
Some things I'm just not quite sure.
All right, that's fair. Did you have a chance to meet with the district attorney's office today to talk about what you're going to testify to?
Sure. Yes, we did.
All right, well, that's their job. All right, and y'all met upstairs in the DA's office?
We met in office. Yes.
Okay. Had you ever had a chance to meet with the prosecutors before to go over what you were going to testify about?
We had a meeting. I'm not sure if it was necessarily about what we were going to talk about, but we did meet, and they asked me some of what I saw and things like that.
Right. And I was going over with you some things from your previous statement from July the 9th, and of course that was on the phone, so you knew that was recorded, didn't you?
No, I did not.
You did not?
I don't
Okay.
think I did. I don't even remember that, to be honest. So, yeah, I'll be honest. I don't remember. So I don't want to say I didn't know, but.
All right. And is it fair to say that you were uncomfortable speaking to my investigator who got in touch with you? You didn't want to talk to him?
No, I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Okay. A man named Summers, J.T. Summers.
That I met here in my neighborhood?
Okay.
Okay.
And did you tell him that you would meet with him to have a conversation about this?
No, I don't know.
Did not?
I'm not sure who you're talking about. I was subpoenaed. I was given a piece of paper.
Okay.
If that's who you're talking about, but I don't think it is. I'm not sure.
All right. Do you have any recollection of telling that person who subpoenaed you, telling them that you would have a conversation with them, that you would be happy for him to come out and meet with you about all this?
No, I don't.
This was just a few weeks ago?
No, I remember him giving me the piece of paper, and I remember it being brief. I don't remember that though.
Okay, because it was 2 or 3 weeks ago? You just
Yeah,
can't
it was
remember?
about that long ago. I don't remember us having much of a conversation.
Judge, if I could just have a moment, please. Judge, if we're going to refresh her recollection with her statement, I'm not certain that should be done in front of the jury. Perhaps we need to allow her to listen to her statement somewhere else. And I would like to question her again.
And Judge, if they're going to do that, we just ask to recess as far as her. If those are all the questions, but for that recess, let her listen to that. We can go ahead and call her next witness while she's listening to it.
Yep.
Or I think there are 2 recordings.
Okay.
That's fine.
Number, I'm asking you to step down and,
Number 7. Number 7.
can you escort her or
Yes.
someone take her?
Yes, ma'am. You want to go to witness room number 7? Or?
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Just step out to witness room number 7 and they'll help you, okay?
Watch yourself.
Who are you calling next witness?
They would call Ashley Womack. Ma'am, would you introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your name and then spelling it to the court reporter?
Sure. I'm Ashley Womack, spelled Ashleigh. Womack, Womack.
And Ms. Womack, where do you live?
I live in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is in northern part of Cobb County, just in metro Atlanta.
And do you currently work?
Yes, I work at the store support center of the corporate headquarters for Racetrack Convenience Stores. I work in marketing and communications there, and that's also based in Cobb County as well.
Are you about to take a leave?
Yes, probably pretty obvious. My husband and I are expecting a baby girl in about 5 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Womack, I'm going to turn your attention back to June 18, 2014. Were you working in your same job back then?
Yes, I was working at Racetrack in the marketing department, yes.
And later that afternoon, did you have an event you were going to?
Yes, marketing department, some folks were coming in from out of town. We were going to meet up at Cinco's to all catch up. It's a Mexican restaurant just kind of across the street from Racetrack's Store Support Center.
Now, where did you park when you got to Cinco's?
I reversed my car into a parking spot where I guess by the time I had reversed into my parking spot, I was facing Cinco's front doors. And I was finishing a text message and had opened the door, had opened the car door prior to getting out as I was finishing a text message.
And what, if any, did anything draw your attention up to the Uncle Matteo's area, over by, across from Cinco's?
Yes. As I had the door open, I heard screams, and I heard screams, and I kind of thought for a second, oh, it's kind of early for people to have had that many tequila shots to be screaming that way.
Right.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't pay it much attention other than thinking that it was strange.
And after you heard that, did you do anything or notice anybody else around you?
I got out of the car and started to walk towards the front door of Cinco's, and there was a young woman, African American, a little bit younger than me. She was standing, it looked like beside her vehicle, kind of looking over towards the Matteo's, which is across the parking lot from Cinco's. And I said, "Hey, what's going on? What's happening?" And she said, "That man."
Judge, this is effect on here. It's not to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's about to explain her conduct after that.
She doesn't need to repeat what was said to her to do that.
Okay. All right, ma'am, based upon what was said to you, what did you do?
I said, "Oh my God, did anybody call 911?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran up a slight hill and was trying to call 911 at the same time, kind of going over to where the commotion was occurring.
And we've seen pictures of Cinco's and Uncle Matteo's before. So you're talking about coming from the parking lot right in front of Cinco's up to where the car was. Is that the path you're talking about making?
Correct.
Okay. While you were making your way up there, what were you doing, as best you remember?
I was stumbling up the embankment and trying to call 911 at the same time, and I came up to, I guess, where all of the commotion and issue was occurring, and I think my call with 911 kind of connected simultaneously as I arrived.
With the person that you'd spoken to, I guess, were you, did you leave her back? Was she behind you at the parking at
Yes.
Cinco's? Okay, so you were the first one up there. Or not the first one, but ahead of her up there, I see.
Yes, I was in front of her.
Okay. So when you got up there, could you tell the jury what you saw by the time you arrived?
When I got up to the Uncle Matteo section of the parking lot, there was a man in a red shirt with dark hair, screaming, pacing back and forth in front of his car. "What have I done? What have I done? I've killed my son. What have I done? What have I done?" And then kind of closer to me, there was a young child, about a year and a half old, blonde hair that was slicked back from his face. He was gray or blue and an unnatural color. And there was a Good Samaritan, white male in his 40s, dark hair, that appeared to be giving the baby CPR.
And kind of going back a little bit, when you said that the child's hair was slicked back, what do you mean?
He looked like he had been sweating, and he was an unnatural color of gray. He didn't look. He didn't look good. It wasn't something I'd ever seen before, and it wasn't something. It's not something that you ever forget, and it just. He didn't look like he was alive.
When you said that the person was saying, "What have I done? What have I done? I killed my son." Was he there with his child, or was had he already walked away?
He wasn't with the child. He was closer to the vehicle, screaming. He had a cell phone in his hand up to his head, and he was screaming, pacing back and forth, and just kind of screaming that over and over again. What have I done? What have I done? Oh my God, I've killed my son. What have I done?
And during that time, were there moments when he was not yelling and he was quiet?
Yeah, sometimes when he was screaming, he would catch my attention, and then he would stop, and I think I kind of would forget about him and be looking at what else was happening. But then he'd start screaming again.
So the other girl at Cinco's, you were up on the scene before her. And did you ever see the defendant down with the child or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
The only person that touched the child was the Good Samaritan with dark hair.
And at that point, had you seen what had happened before you got up there, like when the person that actually pulled the child out, had you seen that yet? Okay.
No.
So that had already occurred by the time you got up there?
Yes.
Okay. But you were there before the younger African-American girl at Cinco's?
Correct.
Okay. So by the time you got up there and the Good Samaritan is down there with the child, what were you doing, or were you talking to anyone?
I was on the phone with the 911 operator. She asked me a couple of questions about, where I was, obviously, and what I saw. She asked me about the state of the baby. I described the child to her again. He looked like he was about 1.5 years old. She asked me if he was breathing. I said I wasn't sure, because the Good Samaritan was giving him CPR. I think I told the 911 operator, I think he's having a seizure. That actually ended up being the compressions from the CPR that were making the baby's body have jerky movements.
When you said that about the seizure, did the Samaritan on the ground with him, do anything or make eye contact with you?
Yeah, he turned. I was standing on over his left shoulder, so he kind of turned over his left shoulder and, like, kind of sadly shook his head, like, no, that's not it. And I think I was thinking, oh, the baby's having a seizure. That means that he's still alive. So I think when I saw the Good Samaritan shake his head, it kind of just looked like things weren't going to turn out very well.
Were you there at some point? Well, first of all, did anybody ever abandon the child while you were there?
No.
Okay. And did the police eventually arrive?
Yes. Police arrived first, and then emergency medical, the EMS arrived second.
Did you see any interaction between what you termed the person yelling and the police when they arrived? Did you witness any of that, or were you paying attention to other things?
I saw it in bits and pieces. I think at first I was very much focused on the EMS and their treatment of the child, and everybody kind of thinks you see the ambulance arrive and everything's going to be okay. So I was focused on that. It became very apparent after a minute or two that EMS wasn't moving in a way that was going to save someone's life. So I kind of came to that true realization that the little boy wasn't going to be okay. And by then, another coworker had come up because he'd seen me on the sidewalk, and I turned my back and started crying. with my coworker, and when I turned back around, the guy in the red shirt that had been yelling was in the back of the police cruiser.
During the time when you were at the scene, did that person I think you described the red shirt, the person that was screaming, did he ever come back and get by the child's side or ask to see the child or anything like that?
No, the only person that touched the baby was the Good Samaritan.
Now, after the police arrived, and then I think you said he was handcuffed. Well, before that, his behavior, did it strike you in any form or fashion? What his behavior? Can you describe it?
I thought at the time, it was odd that he wasn't. I obviously assumed that was his father, that was the baby's father. I thought it was odd that a parent wouldn't be on the ground with their child. I haven't had this baby yet, and this is my first baby, but I would imagine that I would just be on the ground trying to do everything I could to put life back into my child. And so I thought that was strange that wasn't happening.
Let me ask you this. Well, you were calling 911. Did you ever hear him call 911 or anything like that?
I didn't hear him call 911. He was on a phone yelling, so I think I assumed he was on the phone with 911. But I had no way of knowing who he was talking to, because by the time I got up there, he already had the phone to his head.
Now, when he was arrested, did you notice him at all, pay attention to him at all in the back of the patrol car?
I think he was yelling, which again I thought was odd. I thought it was odd that the police put someone whose baby died in the back of a police car, and I thought it was odd that he was still yelling.
And had you seen the interactions between him and the police, like how that went down at all?
No.
And when he was in the back, were you paying attention? Was he looking back at the crowd when he was yelling, or the people there, or do you remember what was going on?
I don't really remember. I just kind of remember still hearing him yelling.
All right. I'm going to show you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 237. Ask you if you recognize State's Exhibit 237.
Yes.
Okay, how do you recognize that?
That is the disc of my 911 call that we've listened to a couple of times.
Is this recording a fair and accurate recording of the conversation you had with 911 while you were at the scene on June 18, 2014?
Yes.
Your Honor, I tender State's Exhibit 237.
Any objection?
And I'd ask permission to publish, Judge.
You may.
Thank you.
And it's admitted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Moore? Yes.
Two USB cords.
What's that?
There's two USB cords attached to that drive. I believe it's the other one.
Oh.
Thank you.
Sorry, Judge.
Did you turn it on?
It's on. I was trying to
Just not on good enough, huh?
correct.
Anybody else?
Judge. Does it actually work when we try it?
Always happens.
Ms. Barnes recognized it if you.
Does somebody have a computer you can play?
It actually had recognized it before, right before I ejected it to try it again. So now I'm good. Wait
In other words, be patient.
as much as we can.
I don't have that gene. Actually, I have to have the patience. It's one of my few gifts.
Hey, all right.
County 911, where is your emergency? Emergency. There's a baby on the ground. What's the address? I'm calling 911. Where's Cinco's? In Cumberland, near Cumberland. It looks like the baby is having a seizure. Okay, what was that location, ma'am? We're at the Cinco's at Acres Mill Square. Acres Mill Square? You said it's the Cinco gas station? No, it's the Cinco's and Matio's. It's an intersection of Acres Mill and Parkhouse. Is it Tokyo area? Yes, ma'am. Okay. He was left in the car. Do you see anybody around them? Yeah, his dad, and it was like somebody was going to give him CPR. Can you see the baby from where you are? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am. How old does the baby appear to be? He looks like he's about a year and a half old. All right. And can you see him breathing? I'm not sure. They're doing CPR. Who is doing CPR? One of the parents? Looks like a good Samaritan and a good Samaritan. Okay, I believe we do have people on the line, okay? But I want to get as much information, okay, from you. So, we don't know if the baby's breathing, correct? I'm sorry? We don't know if the baby's breathing. It doesn't look like it. Okay. All right, I did hear the officer, okay, if he's requested an ambulance to get started, okay? We have them on the way. Thank you.
Now, Ms. Womack, on that, could you actually, I don't know if you can pick it up that time, could you hear the person yelling in the background, the father yelling?
Yes.
I believe that's all the questions I have, Judge. Take this out so I don't forget it.
Good afternoon, Ms. Womack. Hey, stand up, Ross. You weren't asked to, if you could recognize the man. Is this the guy that you're talking about?
It is.
Okay, thank you. All right. There's not a report from you, so let me just ask, how did you get in contact with the police?
Do you mean at the scene when I called 911 or?
After you called 911, how did you then get back in contact with the police?
Actually, Cobb County called me afterwards. because I had called, they got my information from 911, from calling 911.
All right. And do you remember who it was that you talked to?
It was Mr. Boring.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.
All right. And do you remember when you talked to him?
I think it was March or April of this year.
Okay. And was that at the DA's office?
It was over the phone first,
All right. And then later at the DA's
and then
office?
later at the DA's office, correct.
Okay. All right. And were there any police officers in the room when you were talking to Mr. Bourne at the DA's office?
I don't know specifically. I don't know.
And if they were wearing a suit like me, you might not know.
Yeah,
if they
there were a
police
few.
officers.
There were 3 or 4 people in the room, but I
Okay.
don't
Well, that's-
remember what everybody's role was.
I know, that's fair. Do you remember either of these lawyers might have been in there?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mr. Boring was there, Jesse was there,
All right.
and Crystal Gossett.
Oh, Crystal's, okay.
DA's office.
What about this fella, the nice-looking guy in the blue and white tie? Was he in there?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's okay. It's been
Sorry.
a couple of months. All right, and so you talked to them in their office, and by any chance did you do any sort of written statement for them? Write anything out?
I don't think so, no.
So, just real quickly, then a couple of things. You were actually you were still inside when you heard the screams.
I was in my vehicle, so I had just parked my vehicle, opened the door to get out, but finished a text message first. And while the door was open, I heard the screams.
Okay. All right. And the specific, you've alluded to, you said screams, but you've also said that you heard screaming certain words. What have I done? What have I done? I've killed my son. I've killed my son.
Correct.
So you heard both just hollering out as well as these particular words.
Correct.
Okay. And it was all coming from Ross. He was the only one that was hollering.
When I was in my vehicle, I couldn't see where the screams were coming from.
Okay.
When I got to the scene, the sounds were only coming from him.
All right. And we're talking, when we say the scene, obviously his vehicle is parked right there in the sort of right off the main entrance when you come in off of Acres Mill Road.
Correct.
By any chance, did you actually hear the screeching coming off the road and parking?
No, I did not.
Didn't hear it. All right. And how close initially do you think you got to where his truck was in Cooper?
I was closer to the baby and the Good Samaritan that was doing the CPR. I didn't get as close to the vehicle. I was closer to the child.
Okay. And how far do you think that Cooper was from the car?
A few feet.
Okay. Right. Based on what you heard, I take it you don't really have, you didn't hear the screeching, and all you heard was some screaming and what have I done. You don't really know how much time had transpired from the time the truck stopped till the time you actually got there and saw somebody doing CPR.
No, I don't.
Okay. So anything that would have happened before, such as Cooper being taken out of the truck, you didn't see that?
I did not see that.
All right. And whatever Ross may have done, taking him out, putting him on the ground and attempting CPR, you wouldn't have seen any of that?
I did not see any of that.
Okay. The first time that you remember seeing Ross, he was already back away from Cooper, and he was already pacing.
Correct.
Okay, and screaming.
Yes.
All right. Did you see him with his hands like this on his head, like looking up at all?
I saw like the running of hands through hair.
Okay.
And
Okay.
along with the pacing and the screaming.
All
Yes.
right. Just sort of, not like I'm doing like marching, but just sort of nervous pacing, like back and forth.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And you saw at some point, besides the grabbing of the hair, you also saw him with a cell phone.
Correct.
Okay. You couldn't hear if he was having a conversation or anything that he was saying?
All I heard was the screaming.
Okay.
I thought he was screaming into the phone what he was screaming out. So I thought he was delivering that message to whoever he was on the phone with.
And you never saw a time when Cooper was just left completely alone?
No.
The whole time you were there, somebody was over and with him, addressing him in some fashion?
The entire time, by the time I got there, the Good Samaritan was appearing to help Cooper, and that Good Samaritan did not leave his side until emergency services appeared on the scene.
And police got there really fast.
I don't really know. It felt like a long time, but I was also, it felt like an eternity.
Right.
So I don't know how long it was.
Okay. And do you remember the officers being, there was a taller, sort of thick-built male?
I don't necessarily remember what the police officers looked like.
Okay. All right. And do you remember seeing police officers down on the ground with Cooper trying to do CPR?
I remember them checking him. I don't know if I paid attention to if they were doing CPR specifically or not, but I remember them arriving on the scene and going to him.
All right. And is it fair to say that that Ross was taken into custody very quickly after police got there? Within, what, a minute or so?
I don't know how much time passed. Again, it was enough time, and the time that it took for the police officers to be helping the baby, and then an ambulance to come and be helping, and me to know that the ambulance, the EMS wasn't moving like they were saving a life, but instead like they were taping off a scene where there was a dead body.
Right.
That's when I turned around and started crying, and by the time I turned back around, he was in the police car. So I don't know minutes or seconds how long that was.
And did you see him handcuffed?
I just saw him in the police car.
All right.
in the back of the
Did you
police
see
car.
them move the police car to a different location?
I don't remember
That's
that.
okay. And do you remember, did you ever look over at that car after he was in custody and just to see what he was doing?
His car, in the police car?
Yeah.
I think I just still heard him screaming and just thinking, that's weird, why is he screaming? But I also,
It was chaotic.
it was, yeah, and I was consumed by the fact that there was a child that was gone.
All right. So you didn't direct your attention to whatever he was doing. You could still hear him screaming and hollering from being in the car, however far away it was.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And you thought that was odd? You said that he was hollering, yelling while even though he was already in custody? You found that strange?
I did.
Okay. And you found strange that they had arrested him at all?
Yes.
Just under the circumstances, you found that odd?
I thought he lost his child. That's weird that he looks like he's under arrest.
And just so I'll understand the timing, how quickly do you think that you started calling 911? I mean, you get out of your car. I mean, did you start calling almost immediately?
I got out of my car, so the way the parking lot is, there's like a traffic path in between where I was parked and where the other young woman was parked. So I got out of my car, shut the door, walked across, where traffic would go in front of the restaurant,
Right.
to the other parking spots. And that's when I asked her the question of what happened. And what she said, what she thought occurred, is when I looked up and said, oh gosh, has anybody called 911? So I guess as long as 15, 20 seconds
Yeah.
to walk from my car basically to her car.
Are you talking about the little like marked off walkway when you come out of Cinco that walks almost directly over to Mario's?
No, I don't.
Let me get a map.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
don't
get
know
a
if that
map
will
and
be
just show you.
helpful.
Yeah, that's Acres Mill and 41. That's okay. Let me get one of those stickers. Let me get one of those stickers. This is the same one we used. Just that empty. You okay?
Just kidding.
While he's getting that, let me just show you this, see if you can recognize what I'm talking about real quick. If you can orient yourself, recognize if this were Acres Mill, that's 41, that was Cinco.
Oh. Yes.
Does that look
Be
familiar?
careful that door is.
If this is Cinco's and this is the shopping center, I parked in one of these couple of spots right here.
Gotcha.
And the other woman was in, like, this is the front door of Cinco's, she was parked about right here, so I got out of my car and walked up this way.
Well,
as I was going
let's do
through.
this. Hang on one second. Let's have it identified. So, does this fairly and accurately depict the area of this intersection at, Acres Mill and 41 and sort of the?
Mr. Kilgore, you remind her to be careful with that door swing open because of so don't pull your hand.
Okay.
It'll make you go forward.
Thank you. We don't want
Yes, we don't want that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, but, I mean, does this fairly and accurately depict that intersection, these businesses that we're talking about?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and move defendants to then.
No objection.
No objection, it's submitted.
Okay, thank you. And, rather than pull out one of those, easels, are you okay to just walk down here and just show them what you're talking about?
I can do that.
Thank you. I don't think it's like difficult for you, so. God, you got all this.
Temporarily.
Okay. All right, so, this is the, thank you, Mr. Yes. I'll stand back over here. So this is, the area we're talking about. Is this Cinco?
Correct.
All right, and so his car would have been, right over here on the side of Mario's?
Yeah, it's about right in this direction because I remember standing either on or near the sidewalk there.
Okay, and show them what you showed me where you were parked.
So I was parked about in one of these couple of few first spaces here, back reversed in, so my front was facing Cinco's. I exited my car. The other young woman was standing outside of a vehicle around here because these are the front doors of Cinco's here. So I had my interaction with her and ran up this way to call 911.
Okay, so you would have crossed the entrance way, and that's that little brick walkway, and then come down the sidewalk toward where the car was.
I don't know if I followed that direct path because I was running, and towards. I think it was more of a diagonal path.
Yeah.
But yes, I ended up in this area where
Okay.
the car
And
was
is it
parked.
fair to say that by the time you got out of your car, came up the sidewalk and made that little diagonal over there to behind the Matios, or to the side of the Matios there, this is a fairly busy area. I mean, there's a lot of cars coming and going.
Yes,
Fair to say.
it's busy. It is a
Okay.
busy area.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing further, Judge. We should be excused.
Yes, your feet down, thank you.
Your Honor, I think Ms. Eastland's, whatever her next thing is, she's prepared to finish up.
Are y'all ready?
That's fine, Judge.
Bring her back. I'll remind you that you're still under oath. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Eastland. Did you have a chance to listen to your interview with Detective Murphy from July the 9th, 2014?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Does that help remind you that what you told him is that you heard screaming and someone in a panic?
Yes, I said that in the video.
All right. And you remember then that you told him that he put him on the ground and tried CPR.
Yeah, I heard that.
All right. And do you remember that you told Detective Murphy that the man was yelling for someone to call for help?
I heard that on the video, yes.
Okay. You heard yourself telling Detective Murphy
Yes.
that he was yelling for someone to call for help.
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember hearing yourself tell Detective Murphy that other people took over for him? It was setting in for him.
Yes, I heard that as well.
Okay. You told him that he asked you specifically, did anything seem suspicious, and you told him nothing suspicious at all.
I did tell him that, yes.
And do you remember telling him that you weren't close at all, that you couldn't even see the child's skin?
No.
Don't remember that. Okay.
He may have asked me a specific question, but I saw the child very well.
All right. And in fact, Detective Murphy told you it's hard to say how someone would react under these circumstances, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Nothing further, Judge.
You're free to go.
Okay, thank you.
How long is your next witness?
15, 20 minutes?
For y'all, right?
I'm sorry?
For y'all?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You have to ask enough questions, obviously. We're going to take a break. Close your notepads, keep an open mind, no conversation. So let's take our afternoon break right now.
That noise cut off. Something they did probably.
Something coming to Vinings,
I didn't hear what she said.
but.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's not Oldman and nothing like that. We thought it was, the other day, we thought it was just rolling things out there. It was paving